When Eilat Mazar realized she had discovered an ancient structure near Jerusalem, she turned to the Bible to help explain what she found. And she learned that this new discovery supports the biblical accounts of King David and his son Solomon. Beneath Jerusalem's crumbling hills, a silence 3,000 years old has finally broken. For centuries, whispers told of King Solomon's lost tomb, a vault of gold, wisdom, and secrets too powerful to share. Scholars dismissed it as legend, but a storm, a hidden tunnel, and a sealed chamber have changed everything. What was uncovered left experts stunned and believers shaken. In this video, we'll uncover the treasures, inscriptions, and mysteries inside Solomon's tomb, and why the greatest secret may still be waiting in the dark. The legend that refused to die for centuries, the name Solomon has carried with it an aura of awe, mystery, and even fear. He was no ordinary king. The Bible portrays him as a man of staggering wisdom, wealth that bent the imagination, and a kingdom that shone like a beacon in the ancient world. His reign in the 10th century BC marked what many consider the golden age of Israel. And yet, amid the grandeur of his temples, palaces, and vast trade empire, one question has haunted historians, explorers, and the devout alike. Where did this legendary king take his final rest? The answer has been whispered across time in riddles, myths, and desperate searches that nearly always ended in disappointment. The scriptures themselves leave tantalizing clues, but no clear directions. Solomon is remembered for building the first temple, a masterpiece of cedar beams from Lebanon. Walls plated in gold, and stones so finely cut that they seem to lock into place without mortar. If his temple could shine like a jewel above Jerusalem, surely his tomb would be no less extraordinary. Yet the texts are strangely silent about his burial. No sarcophagus has ever been unearthed, no monument marked with his name, no chamber unveiled with certainty. For a king whose shadow stretches across Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, his grave has remained elusive, as though deliberately erased from the landscape of time. Centuries on end saw a variety of theories flourish. Some were certain that the tomb lay directly under the Temple Mount, closed by Solomon himself, and around which divine wrath roamed. Others contended he was interred in secret caves beneath the Judean hills, or along secret tunnels whose entrances were known only to the ancient priests. Medieval knights were gutting beneath Jerusalem with the conviction of exposing a vault of sacred treasures. The 19th century explorers dashed into the rocky slopes around the city of David, following half-understood documents and local legends. Again and again, they departed with nothing but shattered stones and a heart full of despair. An aspiring thief caught sight of it, shielded by death traps and curses. These traps were designed to collapse tunnels on any intruders. Some criticized the tomb for being more than a resting place. It served as a repository for ancient wisdom, geometry, medicine, and possibly witchcraft. Here, history's silence stirred hotter tongues. If Solomon's temple vanished after the Babylonian conquest, so would his grave. By the dawn of the 20th century, the search was dismissed as romantic folly. To many, Solomon was half historical, half mythical. His kingdom was embellished in scripture, while his grave was poetic. The discipline of archaeology turned to other ruins and kings. Yet, the tale of Solomon's tomb would not die. Underneath skepticism, the story's pull remained strong. Even today, at the Western Wall in Jerusalem, prayers are whispered. They believe somewhere below lies the body of the wisest. New evidence has emerged, proving Solomon was a real historical king. Excavations unearthed evidence of copper mines in Timnah. These mines were believed to be part of his kingdom's wealth. Artifacts linked trade routes from Africa, India, and Arabia. These discoveries added to the tantalizing question of Solomon's existence. If such stories are true, then surely his tomb must exist. But a sudden rainstorm on a Jerusalem hillside cracked the legend wide open. The hillside in Silwan appeared ordinary at first glance. Rugged limestone and uneven terrain hid more than it revealed. But beneath its weathered face, radar scans told another story. Dr. Emily Carter's team, equipped with technology, swept the slope. They froze at what appeared on their monitors. Instead of random cracks and voids, the earth revealed design. A tunnel system, intricate and deliberate, lay hidden beneath their boots. Initially, the team suspected it was part of Jerusalem's ancient aqueducts. After all, the city is riddled with channels carved by kings and conquerors. But this was different, too deep and too purposeful. Odd features set these tunnels apart, leading nowhere or curving back on themselves. These weren't mistakes, they were decoys, built to evade discovery. Whoever built this structure didn't want it found easily. The atmosphere grew stranger with shadows resembling hidden chambers beneath the surface. Some areas appeared intentionally unstable, designed to collapse at the slightest disturbance. For Dr. Carter and her team, it was a chilling message. This was no abode. Instead, it served as a candle holder against time and intrusion. An ancient world went to great lengths to keep its secrets buried here. And then came the markings. Just outside the first hollow in the hillside, faint carvings emerged. Hebrew symbols, weathered yet visible, were meticulously scratched into the rock. Cleaning revealed a repetitive pattern of 7 lines and 7 symbols. This number ties directly to the first temple's construction, which took 7 years. To Carter, nothing about it seemed coincidental. The markings appeared as coded instructions. They looked less like graffiti and more like deliberate instructions meant to confuse outsiders. These were serious disadvantages of continuing this route. The limestone below Silwan is fragile. It collapses readily when disturbed, and this area is a politically sensitive hotspot. Adverse excavation could lead to crises and possibly cave-ins. Each step was slow and painstaking, carrying the weight of history and diplomacy. Increased security was soon implemented after employees reported a discovery. There was fear that looters or extremists might invade the site. The site is susceptible to falling rock, and human greed poses another threat. On an intellectual level, the promise of discoveries outweighed the imminent danger. The tunnels were fantastic, designed with meticulous craftsmanship. They manifested a sense of foreknowledge and intelligence beyond their time. Carter referred to it as ancient engineering combined with modern paranoia. Every diversion from the path felt like a conscious design against intruders. It was as if King Solomon himself oversaw the architecting of his solace. He designed it so it would never be touched until the time appointed. Just beyond a stone slab sealed for millennia, the earth seemed ready to exhale its secret. For weeks, the team stared at the slab like it was a riddle carved in stone. To most eyes, it appeared as just jagged, immovable rock. But to Dr. Emily Carter, it was a barrier meant to keep intruders out. Getting through it wasn't about brute force, it was about understanding its builders' minds. They weren't just masons, they were guardians prepared for this moment 3,000 years ago. The tension between past and present hung in the air as the team prepared to uncover. The secrets hidden within the earth were about to be revealed. Years earlier, the stone was neither smooth nor decorative, but fit tightly into the tunnel. There were no gaps or seams to pry at. Surrounding it were faint markings, some nearly erased. Under angled light and high-resolution scanners, the details began to emerge. To be more accurate, it was not just a door, but part of a defense system. Radar scans had uncovered false passages and trap-like tunnels rigged to collapse. Carter feared that one wrong move could bring the entire hillside crashing down. The work began with surgical precision. Laser scanners and 3D models mapped every detail. Every indentation, every crack, and every suspicious hollow was recorded by our engineers. It felt like defusing a bomb where the wire was made of stone and time. Day after day, the team worked in silence, endlessly breathing. They turned levers, tapped gently on weak points, and examined ancient inscriptions. Carter spent long nights studying a fragment of Hebrew text found nearby. She compared it against biblical descriptions of temple construction. Some spoke about gates that yield only to wisdom and stones aligned with the stars. For her, it read like a poetic blueprint, dormant for millennia, awaiting discovery. Then it roared. A low, resounding groan echoed through the chamber as the slab shifted. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the ground rumbled beneath their feet. For a spine-tingling moment, the team froze, terrified that collapse would follow. The tremor died down, leaving only silence. The seal had moved for the first time in centuries. The air bore a mixture of excitement and dread. It was closer, but the danger was real. On the third day of their efforts, they finally achieved success. After a last adjustment of weighted pulleys, the stone slab cracked open just enough. A rush of cold, stale air escaped, not just a breeze, but centuries' exhale. It bellowed like something very old, finally letting go. In that moment, the team felt everything as if the mountain had spoken. Beyond this slab was only void, dark. Their flashlights cut through the nothingness. When they saw what lay in front of them, they fell silent at once. A chamber stretched ahead, bigger than they had initially anticipated. Its walls glimmered slightly under the dust. The first beam of light struck gold. Not a speck or chunk, but entire vessels, stacked and lined along the walls. Golden bowls carved with Hebrew inscriptions caught the glow. A slender menorah stood tall, its branches heavy but proudly upright. Exactly like one finds in ancient texts, a stunning sight for the team. In the Book of Kings, a strong scent filled the air. It was rich with spices, thyme, frankincense, and saffron. The aroma was so vivid that one could almost believe time had stopped. Jars cracked open, releasing perfumes and oils. These scents were crafted centuries ago during rituals now unfamiliar to anyone. In one corner, silks and fabrics remained. These remnants echoed trading routes that stretched as far as India and Africa. Lions and palm trees carved from ivory sat beneath dust. Despite the dust, their beauty glimmered. It was no myth, this tomb had ceased to be a legend. Yet, the glitter of treasure paled compared to the strange symbols carved into the walls. These symbols held forbidden knowledge in stone. The treasures dazzled everyone, but it wasn't gold that captivated the team. It was the silence, followed by the intricate carvings. Torchlights swept across the chamber's walls. Shapes danced in the light, revealing forms that were neither random nor merely ornamental. Lines cut deep into limestone. These lines twisted into spirals and ratios that resembled blueprints more than decoration. They were not just inscriptions. They were instructions, transforming the chamber from a tomb into a library written in stone. At the center of the northern wall, one symbol stood out. A star, sharp and deliberate, was etched with precision. This symbol was ancient, raw, and directly linked to Solomon's reign. To legends, it was more than a symbol. It represented the seal of Solomon, said to carry mystical power, commanding spirits and sealing away dangerous knowledge. Finding it here, in the depths of a hidden chamber, made even the most skeptical archaeologists hesitate. But the walls held much more. Intertwined with the star were geometric patterns, angles so precise. These ratios resembled higher mathematics, with circles and squares, spirals mapped almost perfectly. Alignments suggested astronomical calculations. One scholar joked it looked like Solomon's calculus notebook, half serious. These carvings hinted at an understanding far ahead of their time, as if builders encoded knowledge into the stone. In a far corner of the room, the team discovered piles of clay. Some were cracked and eroded. Others were remarkably intact. The writing on them was tight, dense, and deeply inscribed in Hebrew. The first clay tablet detailed the dimensions of the temple, almost perfectly aligning with the Book of Kings. This tablet was amazing, actual proof of texts held through thousands of years. But the second tablet shook everyone. Unlike the first, it was not orderly. The script unraveled into riddles, phrases bending grammar and defying norms. Any sort of easy translation brings to mind hidden wisdom, the voice within the stone. It sounded more like a cipher than something you would think of as an actual record. One phrase really stood out: the light of knowledge is locked until the star is turned. The archaeologists cast nervous glances at one another. What exactly was it? A metaphor, a poetic flourish, or instruction? The phrasing rang with echoes of texts. These texts are linked to the so-called Key of Solomon, often seen as pseudo-medieval. Yet suddenly, in a hall sealed for 3,000 years, danger loomed. Such legends might have roots much older than anyone dared believe. Then followed the discovery that silenced the space. Set into the southern wall, almost hidden under deep layers of detritus, lay a chest. It was small, no bigger than a lowly piece of modern luggage, yet it fought with the space. No one moved to open it. The atmosphere was somehow against it. Carter recorded in her notebook that even standing next to it felt like trespassing. The team cataloged the chest, photographed it from all angles, and discussed its fate. To try to force it open would probably lead to its destruction. To leave it alone would resist the very temptation that had drawn them here. And then came the words that ignited a worldwide academic firestorm. When Solomon spoke from the walls, the chest remained sealed, heavy with questions. But something else soon pulled the team's attention away. Along the eastern wall of the chamber, half hidden behind layers of dust and soot, faint scratches caught the light. At first, they seemed like erosion. Nothing more than the scars of time. But when carefully brushed and illuminated, they revealed something extraordinary: Hebrew letters, clean and deliberate, carved into the stone. Unlike the geometric patterns, these weren't codes or symbols. They were words. As the sentences took shape, a hush fell over the room. The inscription read, "May wisdom guide my hand as stars guide sailors." Simple, poetic, yet haunting. The style matched ancient Hebrew, and its tone echoed the voice of Proverbs. Wisdom literature traditionally attributed to Solomon himself. For Carter and her team, it was as though the walls had opened to let the king speak across the gulf of 3,000 years. It wasn't a relic or a vessel, it was a message. Images of the inscriptions slid down the secure channels and came to rest on the desks of scholars. By that evening, professors were dissecting the text in late-night calls, live-streamed debates, and heated emails. Some called it the smoking gun, while others scoffed, saying the phrasing was too polished, too poetic, intended for lending credence to belief than for. Skeptics argue this inscription could have been carved by a scribe, glorifying Israel's most famous king centuries later. But the story doesn't end here. Just below the major inscription, faint outlines of other symbols appeared. These symbols were somewhat less Hebrew and anything but abstract. Some saw hints of Persian influence. This possibly indicated later additions. The uncertainty stoked more outrage. Was this really Solomon? Or was it later effrontery to mimic him? Yet, the words meant something. It felt personal, almost contemplative. The voice of a ruler looking out into the stars for guidance. While under the crushing weight of power, news media quickly responded to the situation. Screaming headlines of every description emerged: Solomon's last words found, biblical hoax in Jerusalem. Witnesses' reactions spanned all shades of respect, awe, and caution. Rabbis examined the scrolls. They scrutinized the phrases against the judges of known scripture. Christian theologians confirmed the existence of a king. According to the Bible, he existed. By Quranic tradition, Muslims, who regard Solomon as a prophet, weighed the argument. The social media feed exploded with opinions, speculations, theories, and heated arguments. Some deemed it proof of the historicity of the stories found in the Bible. Others called it a dangerous manipulation. Comparatively speaking, Dr. Carter's position was that of an island in a storm. Calm, yet conciliatory. The academic, her very standing resembling the most fragile color of light, added, "We weren't looking for a king." But the clues kept pointing toward him. And when history speaks, even in whispers, we owe it to the world to listen. It might excite the argument, but could never settle it. But the real shock came when another name appeared inside the tomb. The Queen of Sheba's shadow. When the dust settled on the eastern wall, what emerged wasn't just another inscription. It was a name that thundered across history and scripture. Sheba. The letters were chiseled with the same deliberate hand as the Solomon inscription. But the message they carried felt even heavier. This wasn't a random carving. It was a record of a royal visit around 950 BCE. The very story described in the Book of Kings were suddenly bound together in stone. The moment the team translated her name, the air shifted. Carter recalled it as time-stopping in real life. For centuries, Sheba's story has fascinated believers and skeptics alike. The Queen of Sheba, ruler of a wealthy kingdom in either modern-day Ethiopia or Yemen, is said to have traveled with caravans loaded with spices, jewels, and riddles to test Solomon's wisdom. In the biblical account, she left Jerusalem awestruck, declaring that not even half of Solomon's greatness had been told to her. To Muslims, she was Bilqis, a monarch, a figure who conversed with Prophet Suleiman. The Queen of Sheba witnessed his divine wisdom firsthand. To many, she blurred the line between history and myth. Here she was in stone. Not in scripture, not in oral tradition, but in a hidden chamber beneath Jerusalem. The carving had her name and recounted a royal exchange: ivory, frankincense, gold. An encounter that solidified the seal of alliance, not just admiration. Contrary to folklore, the visit was an event altering the political and economic geography of the ancient Near East. However, the discovery, notwithstanding its glorious causation, turned the sides of opinions. Almost instantaneously, religious authorities jumped onto the carving and declared it proof. The priests found evidence of scripture incarnate. The Imam cited Surah 27 of the Quran, mentioning Sheba coming to Suleiman, and drew parallels with this recently uncovered text. The rabbis noted this document as evidence of Israel's ancient magnificence. With so many exaltations and praises, experts fought back. A few said those characters did not exactly look 10th century BCE. Some suggested it may have been a later addition to prop up the legend. Others whispered that the timing was just too nice, too neat for the find. As these arguments developed, politics erupted. So hot was Jerusalem, already one of the most contested pieces of land on earth, that it became even worse. Governments discussed the ownership claim over the site. Religious factions fought among themselves as to who really interpreted the find. Suddenly, Carter's excavation became more than archaeology, but a lightning rod for faith, history, and national identity. Hints flew that officials were quietly moving to insulate access, fearing the inscription could rekindle fresh strife. Nevertheless, something deeper stirred beneath all that noise. For the archaeologists in that chamber, the carving did not simply confirm the existence of Sheba. It implied that the meeting with Suleiman bore consequences extending much further than the texts. Alliances meant common trade routes stretching into Africa and Arabia. Symbols indicate that knowledge could have been shared, maybe even technological or architectural concepts. What if Suleiman's wisdom was not purely divine insight, but rather an amalgamation of ideas? What if Sheba left hints behind, fragments of her own culture interwoven into Israel's matrix? Such questions grew loud in the ears of the team as they continued probing the wall. An alcove appeared right behind the Sheba inscription, sealed off with stone slabs. These slabs were thinner than the main door, yet definitely deliberate. Carter called this a chamber within a chamber, like a whisper behind the story. When it broke open, there were no more inscriptions or treasures, just a small gold object buried in dust. It was a ring, thick and heavy, radiating an air of royal significance. The star was embossed on its face, crude yet strikingly similar to one on the chamber wall. As the debate reached its peak, a golden seal emerged from the dust. This was the missing king's seal. The ring shimmered under the archaeologists' trembling flashlights. Its surface was rough and hand-carved, yet the symbol engraved was unmistakable, a six-pointed star. To modern eyes, it resembled the Star of David, but this version was ancient and rich in meaning. Lab tests later confirmed that the gold's metallurgy aligned with the 10th century BCE. This period was the time of Solomon. For Carter and her team, it was more than jewelry. It represented identity, a seal that might have stamped decrees and marked treaties. This was a seal that authenticated the rule of Israel's most legendary king. Legends claim that the king wielded a ring of power, granting him dominion over spirits. Sometimes described simply as his royal seal, the artifact held immense significance. The team debated whether they were staring at history's most famous signet. Some cautioned that similar rings had been found from later kings, like Hezekiah. This suggested that the design might have been shared across dynasties. Others insisted that its crude yet deliberate carving marked it as older, the original. Carter leaned closer, tracing the lines with her eyes. "These aren't prayers," she whispered. "They're notes." The chamber suddenly felt alive, as if the walls were singing in silence. The markings referenced instruments long tied to biblical worship: harps, lyres, flutes. One symbol closely matched descriptions of the 10-stringed harp associated with David. According to the Book of Chronicles, Solomon inherited a chord of music. A symphony of worship meant to echo through the temple, now carved into these stones. And in turn, unable to resist, plucked the notes on a replica harp. The sound was crude, hesitant, yet haunting, chilling everyone who heard it. The chamber wasn't just a tomb or a treasury anymore, it was a time capsule. It held worship, politics, and culture, a living archive of Solomon's world. But despite the music resonating off the walls, one truth grew heavier. The body of Solomon was still missing. AI scans hinted at hollow spaces beyond. Geometric lines that could signal more rooms, or nothing at all. But digging further would require permits, diplomacy, and international cooperation. For now, the tomb's deepest secrets remained sealed, leaving the world torn between awe and frustration. They had touched Solomon's world, perhaps even his personal belongings, yet the man remained elusive. The legendary figure remained elusive, his story wrapped in mystery and intrigue. Artifacts from the tomb whisper tales of power, wealth, wisdom, and music. Yet, his final resting place remains shrouded in silence and uncertainty. While the artifacts and inscriptions may confirm Solomon's reign, his body is absent. This absence keeps the mystery alive. What do you think? Is this truly Solomon's tomb? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch our next video for more ancient mysteries.